Now, Trump's USDA is now looking to enact a rule change that would cut food stamps for millions of Americans. Now, this is under USDA Chief Sonny Perdue. And in a call with reporters on Monday, he said that the rule change that they're looking at would end automatic food stamp eligibility for those receiving other forms of federal and state assistance. So, for example, if you're getting welfare, well, then you don't get food stamps, which is insane because welfare doesn't actually give all that much. I know there's this myth about, oh, no, you're making so much on welfare. In reality, TANF, which is what welfare is now called, thanks to Bill Clinton, is actually incredibly limited, and incredibly limited in the time that you can actually use it. So there's a lot of misinformation about welfare, and of course, this basically built on it. It's built on that misinformation. So they say, oh, well, if you're already getting you're already getting help by the state, well, then you don't need food stamps, and that's not at all true. Now, as the Washington Post reports, current rules give states latitude to raise SNAP income eligibility limits so that low-income families with housing and childcare costs that consume a sizable share of their income can continue to receive help affording adequate food. Because right now, again, people need childcare so they can actually go to work. A lot of these people do work or have disabilities, etc. And so these states go, okay, look, you're doing your best. A lot of things are expensive, so we'll continue to give you something that you can continue to, have food. Now, the option, also allows states to adopt less restrictive asset tests so that family seniors and people with disability can have a modest savings or own their own home without losing their SNAP benefits. Now, this rule change would basically end all that and allow these states to be much, much more restrictive. Now, think about this, right? Now, some people might be like, well, wait a minute. They own their own house, so why do you need food stamps? I mean, houses are expensive. Yes, but consider the 65-year-old, right? Worked all their lives, paid off their house, but now all they have is retirement, Social Security, right? Or even disability. Well, they own a house, but that doesn't mean that their income is enough to guarantee that they could buy food or at least healthy meals. There are tens of millions of people in this country that live in situations where they depend on this program and actually do have assets. And so here's the thing. It's not because they're lazy. It's because they don't make enough money from either working or, again, they're disabled. But let's focus on the people who are working, right? Or who can work, who are not disabled. So you still have people out there, millions of people, that don't make enough money to survive on their own. Even members of our military, for example, E1s, they do not make enough money from working for the military, which, again, we fund the military, the Pentagon, to the tune of hundreds of billions of dollars, over $700 billion a year. That is the most of any other country, and actually more than every other country in the world combined. And yet we still can't pay our troops enough to where they don't have to rely on food stamps? That's insanity. It's complete insanity. In fact, commissaries are a huge, a huge amount of food stamp SNAP money ends up going into the commissaries on base. So you have, members of the military and members of military families, right? Now you want to say those people are lazy? You want to say those people can't have a little bit of savings? You're saying those people can't have houses because they might also lose their benefits. But it's not just them, again, people who are working. But again, you have children, the elderly, and disabled. Now, some people might be like, but Jeff, you don't understand, right? How can you have small savings? If you have a small savings, if you can afford to save a little bit of money, well, then obviously you can afford to buy food and not have to be on the dole. Get off the dole, get off the dole. You ever thought that maybe the only reason they could save a little bit of that money is because they have that little bit of food security? And besides, what would that money go for? Probably not a new iPhone. No, it might go to medical bills or at least a medical emergency. Less than half the country can afford a $400 emergency. I mean, that's complete insanity. It's not as if these people are wealthy. I mean, they might be saving, what, $20 a week or $20 a month, $25, $50 at most, right? And if you put that away for quite a bit of time, then you'll have a little bit of a savings. We're not talking hundreds or tens of thousands of dollars on this, right? Now, there's the other argument that comes inevitably from the right wing, and it's, hey, man, look, why don't they just get a job, full employment? If they have a crappy job that doesn't pay enough, they just get a better job. Well, as I've alluded to before, again, most people on SNAP are the elderly and disabled, and those that are not in those two categories, they do end up working. And so sometimes they work, one job or two jobs, right? It's not an issue of laziness or unwillingness to get a job or to get a better job, right? This is a problem of pay. If wages had kept up with inflation and productivity, the minimum wage would be near $30 an hour. I know that sounds crazy, but then again, since the 1970s, CEO compensation has increased by over 930%. So what's more crazy, right? An increase in the minimum wage, even to $15 an hour, which is a 100% increase, right? You have doubled the federal minimum wage, 100%. You still have 930% for CEO compensation. Insanity. Look, not only that, but remember the last time the federal minimum wage had increased? It was about 2009, right? It went from $5.25 to $7.25. I remember working in the stock room at a grocery store when I ended up getting that raise. And you know what happened? Nothing. I mean, people got a raise. The economy didn't fall apart. There weren't giant amounts of layoffs the last time that, there was a raise in the minimum wage. No. If minimum wage increases, destroy the economy, it would have imploded already. Because we've had so many different raises throughout the years. Oh, but Jeff, you don't understand. $15 an hour, that's huge. No, it's only $30,000 a year. That's not that much. So those conservative pundits, again, they're wrong. But like I said, people who work for a living should make enough to not need to survive on food stamps and on government assistance. And those who are on it that can't work should not have it taken away just because they might have a couple bucks stored away in a savings account for an emergency. This is another hole in the social safety net that they are cutting. Now, Senator Debbie Stabenow, top Democrat in the Senate Agriculture Committee, said in a statement on Tuesday that this rule would, quote, take food away from families, prevent children from getting school meals, and make it harder for states to administer food assistance. This proposal is yet another attempt by this administration to circumvent Congress and make harmful changes to nutrition assistance that have been repeatedly rejected on a bipartisan basis. And why is it rejected? Well, it turns out there's a lot of people who are Trump supporters, who are Republicans, that are poor enough to be on food assistance. In fact, most of the assistance ends up going to red states, Louisiana, Mississippi, Kentucky, etc. Those are majority Republican areas, and they get most of that food assistance, and so that ends up hurting their own constituents, which, of course, you start taking away their food, you start taking away their stuff, well, then they're going to start getting very angry. Now, here's the thing. What's the goal of this? Well, the goal is not to introduce people to the dignity of work. Again, you already know, a lot of people on food stamps already work. It's also not to stop dependency because, again, most people don't want to have to need food stamps. Nobody wants to be dependent on the government. No, what it is that it's another way to practice social Darwinism. Only the strong, only the wealthy are entitled to food. Only the wealthy are entitled to education. Only the wealthy are entitled to survive. If you're poor, you're SOL. Now, for a supposedly Christian nation, not my description. That's their description, since they want this country to be a Christian country. For a supposed Christian country, it is a very weird and very selfish, punitive worldview. But unfortunately, that explains it. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know how I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent, progressive media.